Welcome back to another episode of Marketing and Mindset with your host, Matt Miller. And today we're going to be going over a special episode all about public speaking. So, this has always been something that I've struggled with in terms of portraying certain points, speaking with emotion, and it's something that I'm currently working on. So, if you think of the most influential people, people that are easily able to sell, or people that are easily able to speak on stage, a lot of times they are the best public speakers. And it's something that I'm actively working on getting better. And it's something that I want to talk about today because it's so important. So, there's been a couple things that I've started to do to intentionally practice this. So actually just this week, one thing I did was I took a book and I said, I'm going to read this book for 10 minutes every single day as quickly as I can. So trying the art of speed reading. And then the second 10 minutes of reading that book, I was going to speak with as much emotion as possible just to work on these things. So it's kind of silly, but I would really dive into the book and try to show as much emotion as possible and just read out loud for 10 minutes. And if you practice like that, a lot of times you get better. So I recommend that practice for anybody that's trying to show more hand motions and give a little bit more emotion when they speak. Another thing that I'm doing right now is I'm recording these podcast episodes and I'm also video recording it. So whenever I give a podcast episode, not only does it go on Apple and Spotify, but it also goes on YouTube, which I'll post to my blog. And when I'm going over the YouTube videos, I'll audit myself. So I'll see what my hand motions are doing. I'll see if I'm speaking with emotion. And then I'll also look for those different filler words to see if I'm using a lot of ands, ors, or buts, or so's. And that's something I'm pretty guilty of, using a lot of so. And so I'm trying to get rid of that and get that out of the vocabulary when I public speak. And then after I record a video, I always go back and I study myself. And I noticed that some of my first episodes, I'd often look to the sky when I was trying to think of a point to say. So I tried to cut back on that. And then I noticed like later in episodes 3 or 4, I would look to the side sometimes when I was thinking. And as I've tried to actively get better at public speaking and showing emotion when I'm talking, I did some random Google searches and I looked up a bunch of YouTube videos. And there's one guy that does a really good job of explaining how to speak with more emotion. And I forget his name, but he broke it down into 3 simple steps. And he said, everybody that's looking to get better, what you should do is you should take out your iPhone and you should record yourself giving a 5-minute speech where you're improvising, you're not reading off a script, and you're actively trying to move around a little bit and tell some stories. So you record yourself for 5 minutes. And then when you're done with that recording, what you want to do is you want to turn off the sound and just audit yourself just moving around, just using video. And what you do when you take off the sound, you really have to focus on the one aspect, which is your movement and your hand motions and where you're looking around. So then when you do that, you can take note and see where your eyes are going. If you look goofy up there, trying to improve. Another thing, after you record the video and you watch the video version, the next thing would be putting your phone upside down or just blocking the video and just listening to the audio recording. And then when you're just listening to the audio, you want to take note of how you sound. Are you using a lot of filler words? Are you speaking at different levels? Are you speeding it up? And then also when you're trying to portray a point, are you slowing down to try to show the significance of it? And that's another thing I learned. You don't want to just talk at one single pace because it can become monotonous. What you want to do is you want to speed up when it's not important, but then when you really want to drive home a point, you want to slow down and show more emotion. So that's something I'm also working on. And then after you take the video recording and take notes, and then also do the audio recording and take notes, the third thing is to take that video and have it transcribed. So there's a lot of softwares that'll do it for free, and there's other softwares that you can pay a small fee for that might be better. But what it'll do is it'll break down all the different words that you used in that video, and then you can study those words. And you can look for those filler words. And you can look to see if you're repeating yourself a lot, something I'm also guilty of. So I'm going to do this exercise at some point in the next few days and really try to improve. I'm also going to look back at this podcast that I'm recording right now and see where else I can improve. And if I look back at myself, episode 1 of recording this podcast, I can tell there's been a big improvement over the last 7 episodes. So this is now episode 8. And if I could go back only a couple months when I was on episode 1 and I was trying this out for the first time, there was 4 main points that I would want to drive home to the previous version of myself to give myself advice to improve. And the first thing is, don't be so monotonous. And if we only speak in one tone the entire time, we're often going to become across as boring and we're not going to be found interesting. And that's the same thing if you're at work, if you're giving a presentation, or if you're just sparking up a conversation with anybody. The more emotion you can show, the more you're going to be able to drive home certain points. The second thing that I noticed is I didn't really show any hand motions. And I remember looking at those first few videos, they kind of stood in the same spot and it looked a little goofy. So I'm trying right now to get a little bit better with the hand motions. So that was the second thing. And then the third thing is I never practiced. I never made it an intentional practice to get better. So as I mentioned, a couple things like intentionally reading with as much emotion as you can, and then studying yourself after you go back and watch the video. And then lastly, I noticed when I started looking for certain people that were doing a good job and I started going on YouTube and searching for certain people, I would watch them and I would take note and I would audit them. So you want to find the people that are doing what you want to do and then try to replicate what they're doing. And that just shows the importance of having certain mentors that you trust when you're trying to improve a certain skill. So something that everybody can do is take a book and just read for 5 straight minutes, read for 10 straight minutes, set an alarm, and just try to show as much emotion, even if it's extreme, and show as much hand motions as you possibly can. That's something that you can do to practice. Another thing is, if you record yourself, make sure that you're taking note. And it was recommended to take a 5-minute video, improvise, and tell some stories. And then during that, you want to study yourself. You want to take off the audio and just look at the video. And then you want to take off the video and just look at the audio. And then lastly, you want to get it transcribed so you can look at all the verbiage and see where you're using filler words and you can see where you're using repeated words. And 4 things that I would have told myself back a couple months that I really need to improve and that I still need to improve is number 1, stop being so monotonous. To tell an engaging story, you have to change tone. Number 2, show more hand emotions, something I'm still working on and getting better at. And then number 3 is being intentional and actually trying to practice to improve the skill. And then number 4, looking for certain mentors, looking for people that are doing a really good job at it, and then studying them and getting better yourself. So thank you guys for listening to this episode. This is a very important topic, and it's not just going to help you if you're trying to start a business. It'll help you in your current business. It'll help you with any kind of relationships, any kind of building of personal contacts. It'll help you with certain presenting skills. It'll help you better convey certain points. It's something that the greatest people in the world have mastered, and it's something that we should be striving to get better on a daily basis. Thank you guys.